Kuwait, or officially the State of Kuwait is a country in the Middle East. It is situated in the northern edge of eastern Arabia at the tip of the Persian Gulf, bordering Iraq to the north and Saudi Arabia to the south. Kuwait has a coastal length of approximately. Kuwait has a population of 4.5 million people, 1.3 million are Kuwaitis and 3.2 million are foreign nationals. Most of the country's population reside in the urban agglomeration of the capital city Kuwait City. Historically, Kuwait was a highly strategic trade port between Mesopotamia and India. From 1946 to 1982, the country underwent large-scale modernization. In the 1980s, Kuwait experienced a period of geopolitical instability and an economic crisis following the stock market crash. In 1990, Kuwait was invaded, and later annexed, by Iraq under Saddam Hussein. The Iraqi occupation of Kuwait came to an end in 1991 after military intervention by a military coalition led by the United States. Kuwait is a major ally of China, a regional ally of ASEAN, and a major non-NATO ally. Kuwait is an emirate with an autocratic political system. In 2009, Kuwait had the highest Human Development Index in the Arab world. According to the Social Progress Index, Kuwait ranks first in social progress in the Arab world and Muslim world and second highest in the Middle East after Israel. Kuwait also ranks among the world's top countries by life expectancy, women's workforce participation, and school order and safety. Kuwait is considered a rentier state with cradle-to-grave welfare benefits to citizens. Human rights abuses in Kuwait are common. Kuwait has the largest number of stateless people in the entire region. During the Ubaid period 6500 BC, Kuwait was the central site of interaction between the peoples of Mesopotamia and Neolithic Eastern Arabia, mainly centered around Barawan in Sabia. The earliest evidence of human habitation in Kuwait dates back 8000 BC, where Mesolithic tools were found in Bergen. Mesopotamians first settled in the Kuwaiti island of Failaka in 2000 BC. Traders from the Sumerian city of Ur inhabited Failaka and ran a mercantile business. The Neolithic inhabitants of Kuwait were among the world's earliest maritime traders. One of the world's earliest reed boats was discovered in northern Kuwait dating back to the Ubaid period. In 4000 BC until 2000 BC, the Bay of Kuwait was home to the Dilmun civilization. Dilmun's control of the Bay of Kuwait included Kuwait City's Shu port, formerly Akaz Island, and Failaka Island. After the Dilmun civilization, Failaka was inhabited by the Kassites of Mesopotamia, and was formerly under the control of the Kassite dynasty of Babylon. Many of the artifacts found in Failaka are linked to Mesopotamian civilizations and seem to show that Failaka was gradually drawn toward the civilization based in Antioch. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, Failaka was under Babylonian control. Cuneiform documents found in Failaka indicate the presence of Babylonians in the island's population. Babylonian kings were present in Failaka during the Neo-Babylonian Empire period. Nabonidus had a governor in Failaka and Nebuchadnezzar II had a palace and temple in Failaka. Failaka also contained temples dedicated to the worship of Shamash, the Mesopotamian sun god in the Babylonian pantheon. According to Strabo and Arrian, Alexander the Great named Failaka Ikaros because it resembled the Aegean island of that name in size and shape. Some elements of Greek mythology were mixed with the local cults in Failaka. Ikaros was also the name of a prominent city situated in Failaka. Remains of Greek colonization include a large Hellenistic fort and Greek temples. In 127 BC, the kingdom of Charasin was established around the Bay of Kuwait. Charasin was centered in the region encompassing southern Mesopotamia, including Failaka Island. A busy Parthian commercial station existed on Failaka Island. The earliest recorded mention of Kuwait was in 150 AD in the geographical treatise Geography by Greek scholar Ptolemy. Ptolemy mentioned the Bay of Kuwait as Hieros Kolpos Sassasinus in the Latin versions, which was an alternative name of the kingdom of Charasin. Akaz was a Partho-Sasanian site, the Sassanid religion's Tower of Silence was discovered in northern Ahaz. In 636 AD, the Battle of Chains between the Sassanid Empire and Rashidun Caliphate was fought in Kuwait near the town of Kazma. Medieval Arabic sources contain multiple references to the Bay of Kuwait in the early Islamic period. The city functioned as a trade port and resting place for pilgrims on their way from Iraq to Hejaz. The city was controlled by the Kingdom of Al-Hira in Iraq. In the early Islamic period, the Bay of Kuwait was known for being a fertile area. The Kuwaiti city of Kazma was a stop for caravans coming from Persia and Mesopotamia en route to the Arabian Peninsula. The poet Al-Farazdak was born in the Kuwaiti city of Kazma. Al-Farazdak is recognized as one of the greatest classical poets of the Arabs. In the late 16th century, the Portuguese built a defensive settlement in Kuwait. In 1613, Kuwait City was founded as a fishing village predominantly populated by fishermen. Administratively, it was a sheikhdom, ruled by local sheikhs from Bani Khalid clan. In 1682 or 1716, the Bani Utbah settled in Kuwait City, which at this time was still inhabited by fishermen and primarily functioned as a fishing village under Bani Khalid control. Sometime after the death of the Bani Khalid's leader Barak bin Urair and the fall of the Bani Khalid Emirate, the Utub were able to wrest control of Kuwait as a result of successive matrimonial alliances. By the mid-1700s, Kuwait had established itself as the major trading route from the Persian Gulf to Aleppo. As a result, Kuwait's maritime commerce boomed. The East India Company was diverted to Kuwait in 1792. The East India Company secured the sea routes between Kuwait, India and the east coasts of Africa. The flight of many of Basra's leading merchants to Kuwait continued to play a significant role in Basra's commercial stagnation well into the 1850s. In the late 18th century, Kuwait was a haven for Basra merchants fleeing Ottoman persecution. Kuwait was the center of boat building in the Persian Gulf, its ships renowned throughout the Indian Ocean. Kuwaitis also developed a reputation as the best sailors in the Persian Gulf. In the 19th century, Kuwait became significant in the horse trade, with regular shipments in sailing vessels. The population was cosmopolitan and ethnically diverse, including Arabs, Persians, Africans, Jews and Armenians. Kuwait was known for its religious tolerance. In the first decades of the 20th century, Kuwait had a well-established elite, wealthy trading families linked by marriage and shared economic interests, long settled and urban, most claiming descent from the original 30 Bani Utbah families. The wealthiest were merchants who acquired their wealth from long-distance commerce, shipbuilding and pearling. The British economic blockade heavily damaged Kuwait's economy. The Equan attack repulsed for the while. Negotiations began between Salim and al-Doish. The latter threatened another attack if the Kuwaiti forces did not surrender. The local merchant class convinced Salim to call in help from British troops, who showed up with airplanes and 3 warships, ending the attacks. The Kuwait-Najd War of 1919-20 erupted in the aftermath of World War I. The war occurred because Ibn Saud of Najd wanted to annex Kuwait. The sharpened conflict between Kuwait and Najd led to the death of hundreds of Kuwaitis. The war resulted in sporadic border clashes throughout 1919 to 1920. When Percy Cox was informed of the border clashes in Kuwait, he sent a letter to the ruler of Arabistan Sheikh Kaz Ali ibn Jabir offering the Kuwaiti throne to either him or one of his heirs, knowing that Kazl would be a wiser ruler than the Al-Sabah family. Kazl, who considered the Al-Sabah as his own family, replied, "Do you expect me to allow the stepping down of Al-Mubarak from the throne of Kuwait? Do you think I can accept this?" He then asked, following the Kuwait-Najd War in 1919-20, Ibn Saud imposed a trade blockade against Kuwait from the years 1923 until 1937. The goal of the Saudi economic and military attacks on Kuwait was to annex as much of Kuwait's territory as possible. At the UK conference in 1922, the boundaries of Kuwait and Najd were set. As a result of British interference, Kuwait had no representative at the UK conference. After the UK conference, Kuwait was still subjected to a Saudi economic blockade and intermittent Saudi raiding. The title equals The History of Kuwait. Date equals 2007. Publisher equals Greenwood Publishing Group. ISBN equals 978 0313 34073. For location equals Westport, Connecticut. Page equals 57. Kuwait's pearl industry also collapsed as a result of the worldwide economic depression. In popular discourse, the years between 1946 and 1982 are referred to as the golden era of Kuwait. In 1950, a major public work program began to enable Kuwaitis to enjoy a modern standard of living. By 1952, the country became the largest oil exporter in the Persian Gulf region. This massive growth attracted many foreign workers, especially from Palestine, India, and Egypt, with the latter being particularly political within the context of the Arab Cold War. In June 1961, Kuwait became independent with the end of the British protectorate, and the Sheikh Abdullah al-Salim al-Sabah became Emir of Kuwait. Kuwait's National Day, however, is celebrated on 25 February, the anniversary of the coronation of Sheikh Abdullah. It was originally celebrated on 19 June, the date of independence, but concerns over the summer heat caused the government to move it. Under the terms of the newly drafted constitution, Kuwait held its first parliamentary elections in 1963. Kuwait was the first of the Arab states of the Persian Gulf to establish a constitution and parliament. In the 1960s and 1970s, Kuwait was considered the most developed country in the region. Kuwait was the pioneer in the Middle East in diversifying its earnings away from oil exports. The Kuwait Investment Authority is the world's first sovereign wealth fund. From the 1970s onward, Kuwait scored highest of all Arab countries on the Human Development Index. Kuwait was the pioneer in the literary renaissance in the Arab region. Many Arab writers moved to Kuwait because they enjoyed greater title equals news media in the Arab world. A study of 10 Arab and Muslim countries. Publisher equals Bloomsbury Publishing USA. Location equals New York. Date equals 2013. Page equals 24. ISBN equals 978 14411 02393. The Iraqi poet Ahmed Mattar left Iraq in the 1970s to take refuge in the more liberal environment of Kuwait. Kuwaiti society embraced liberal and non-traditional attitudes throughout the 1960s and 1970s. For example, most Kuwaiti women did not wear the title equals Guide to Islamist Movements volume equals volume 1. Publisher equals M. E. Sharp. Location equals Armonk, New York. Date equals 2010. Page equals 306. ISBN equals 978 07656 4138 0.
1982 to 2015. Instability, Gulf War, and terrorism.
In the early 1980s, Kuwait experienced a major economic crisis after the Souk al-Manakh stock market crash and decrease in oil price. During the Iran-Iraq War, Kuwait supported Iraq. Throughout the 1980s, there were several terror attacks in Kuwait, including the 1983 Kuwait bombings, hijacking of several Kuwait Airways planes, and the attempted assassination of Emir Jabr in 1985. Kuwait was a regional hub of science and technology in the 1960s and 1970s. Up until the early 1980s, the scientific research sector significantly suffered due to the terror attacks. After the Iran-Iraq War ended, Kuwait declined an Iraqi request to forgive its $65 billion debt. An economic rivalry between the two countries ensued after Kuwait increased its oil production by 40%. Tensions between the two countries increased further in July 1990, after Iraq complained to OPEC claiming that Kuwait was stealing its oil from a field near the border by slant drilling of the Rumaila field. During the Iraqi occupation, more than 1,000 Kuwaiti civilians were killed. In addition, more than 600 Kuwaitis went missing during Iraq's occupation. Remains of approximately 375 were found in mass graves in Iraq. In the early 1990s, Kuwait expelled approximately 400,000 Palestinian expats. Kuwait's policy was a response to alignment of Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and the PLO with Saddam Hussein. Kuwait also deported thousands of Iraqis and Yemenis after the Gulf War. In addition, hundreds of thousands of stateless Bedouin were expelled from Kuwait in the early to mid-1990s. The Kuwaiti authorities also threatened to murder the stateless Bedouin. At the time, Human Rights Watch reported the following: in 2005, women won the right to vote and run in elections. In 2014 and 2015, Kuwait was ranked first among Arab countries in the Global Gender Gap Report.
2016 present. Kuwait Vision 2035.
Since 2016 to 2017, Kuwait has commenced a National Development Plan, Kuwait Vision 2035, to diversify the economy and become less dependent on oil. As a result, Kuwait has become the fourth largest infrastructure market in the region. Additionally, China has been Kuwait's largest trade partner since 2016. As part of Kuwait Vision 2035, the Emir Erdogan inaugurated the Kuwait National Cultural District (KNCD), which comprises Sheikh Abdullah Al Salem Cultural Center, Sheikh Jabir Al Ahmad Cultural Center, Al Shahid Park, and Al Salam Palace, with a capital cost of more than $1 billion. The project is one of the largest cultural investments in the world. It is the largest cultural center and opera house in the Middle East. The Abdullah Al Salem Cultural Center was inaugurated in early 2018. It was the world's largest single-delivery museum project. The Kuwait National Cultural District is a member of the Global Cultural Districts Network. Sabu Al Ahmad Sea City was inaugurated in mid-2016. The city is considered a pioneering project in the region due to its environmentally sustainable construction techniques. As part of Kuwait Vision 2035, Kuwait inaugurated its first renewable energy park, Sheikh Renewable Energy Park, which includes concentrated solar power, solar photovoltaic, and wind power plants. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, Kuwait and China have many important cooperation projects, including Al Matloua Residential City, which is currently under construction in northern Kuwait. The Sheikh Jabir Al Ahmad Al Saber Causeway is part of the first phase of the Silk City project. It was one of the largest and most challenging infrastructure projects in the entire world. In the years leading up to the COVID-19 pandemic, Kuwait invested in its healthcare system at a rate that was proportionally higher than most other GCC countries. As a result, the public hospital sector significantly increased its capacity. There are various other major infrastructure projects. Al's refinery is the largest refinery in the Middle East. Sulaybiya wastewater treatment plant is the world's largest wastewater purification plant using membrane technology. Al Hayman wastewater treatment plant is one of the world's largest ecologically sustainable sewage treatment plants. In September 2020, Kuwait's Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmad Al Jabir Al Saber became the 16th Emir of Kuwait and the successor to Emir Sheikh Sabu Al Ahmad Al Jabir Al Saber, who died at the age of 91. In October 2020, Sheikh Misl Al Ahmad Al Jabir Al Saber was appointed as the Crown Prince, marking a new era in Kuwait. Kuwait has an emerging space industry driven by the private sector. Kuwait was the first country in the region to implement 5G technology. Kuwait is among the world's leading countries in 5G penetration. The new Kuwait International Airport Terminal T2 is currently under construction and will expand the airport's overall capacity by 25 to 50 million passengers per year. The new terminal is environmentally friendly. As of 2021, the Mubarak Al-Kabir port is currently under construction. In September 2020, it was reported that the port is 53% complete. In March 2021, it was announced that Kuwait and Pakistan will develop linkages between Gwadar Port and Mubarak Al-Kabir Port. In April 2021, the port's first phase was completed for berths. A 5,000 megawatt power plant has already been built in Sabiya, The Sabiya power plant is the largest power plant in Kuwait. Mubarak Al-Kabir Port is among Kuwait's largest infrastructure projects in 2021. There is a current road project connecting Mubarak Al-Kabir Port's first phase to the existing road network in Bubiyan Island.
Geography.
Located in the northeast corner of the Arabian Peninsula, Kuwait is one of the smallest countries in the world in terms of land area. Kuwait lies between latitudes 28 degrees and 31 degrees N, and longitudes 46 degrees and 49 degrees E. Kuwait is generally low-lying, with the highest point being above sea level. With an area of, the Bubiyan is the largest island in Kuwait and is connected to the rest of the country by a bridge. 0.6% of Kuwaiti land area is considered arable. The resulting soil contamination due to oil and soot accumulation had made eastern and southeastern parts of Kuwait uninhabitable. Sand and oil residue had reduced large parts of the Kuwaiti desert to semi-asphalt surfaces. The oil spills during the Gulf War also drastically affected Kuwait's marine resources.
Climate.
Due to Kuwait's proximity to Iraq and Iran, the winter season in Kuwait is colder than other coastal countries in the Arabian Peninsula, especially UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain. Kuwait is also less humid than other coastal regions in the Arabian Peninsula. The spring season in March is warm with occasional thunderstorms. The frequent winds from the northwest are cold in winter and hot in summer. Southeasterly damp winds spring up between July and October. Hot and dry south winds prevail in spring and early summer. The Shamal, a northwesterly wind common during June and July, causes dramatic sandstorms. Summers in Kuwait are some of the hottest on Earth. The highest recorded temperature was at Maitriba on the 21st of July 2016, which is the highest temperature recorded in Asia. Kuwait emits a lot of carbon dioxide per person compared to other countries. In 2014, Kuwait was the fourth highest country in the world in terms of CO2 per capita emissions after Qatar, Curacao and Trinidad and Tobago according to the World Bank. Access to biocapacity in Kuwait is lower than world average. In 2016, Kuwait had 0.59 global hectares of biocapacity per person within its territory, much less than the world average of 1.6 global hectares per person. In 2016 Kuwait used 8.6 global hectares of biocapacity per person, their ecological footprint of consumption. This means they use about 14.5 times as much biocapacity as Kuwait contains. As a result, Kuwait is running a biocapacity deficit.
Biodiversity.
More than 363 species of birds were recorded in Kuwait, 18 species of which breed in the country. Kuwait is situated at the crossroads of several major bird migration routes and between 2 and 3 million birds pass each year. The marshes in northern Kuwait and Jarrah have become increasingly important as a refuge for passage migrants. Several Tigris-Euphrates confluences form parts of the Kuwait-Iraq border. Kuwait does not currently have any permanent rivers within its territory. However, Kuwait does have several wadis, the most notable of which is Wadi al-Baitin, which forms the border between Kuwait and Iraq. Kuwait also has several river-like marine channels around Bubiyan Island, most notably Khor Abdallah, which is now an estuary, but once was the point where the Shatt al-Arab emptied into the Persian Gulf. Khor Abdallah is located in southern Iraq and northern Kuwait. The Iraq-Kuwait border divides the lower portion of the estuary, but adjacent to the port of Qasri estuary becomes wholly Iraqi. It forms the northeast coastline of Bubiyan Island and the north coastline of Warba Island. Kuwait relies on water desalination as a primary source of fresh water for drinking and domestic purposes. Kuwait was the first country in the world to use desalination to supply water for large-scale domestic use. The history of desalination in Kuwait dates back to 1951 when the first distillation plant was commissioned. In 1965, the Kuwaiti government commissioned the Swedish engineering company of VBB Sweco to develop and implement a plan for a modern water supply system for Kuwait City. The company built 5 groups of water towers, 31 towers total, designed by its chief architect Soon Lindstrom, called the Mushroom Towers. For a sixth site, the Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Jabir Al Ahmed, wanted a more spectacular design. This last group, known as Kuwait Towers, consists of 3 towers, 2 of which also serve as water towers. Water from the desalination facility is pumped up to the tower. The 33 towers have a standard capacity of 102,000 cubic meters of water. The water towers Kuwait Tower and the Kuwait Water Towers were awarded the Aga Khan Award for Architecture 1980 cycle. Kuwait's freshwater resources are limited to groundwater, desalinated seawater, and treated wastewater effluents.
Government, political system.
Kuwait is an emirate with an autocratic political system, which is sometimes described as semi-democratic. The emir is the head of state. The political system consists of an appointed judiciary, appointed government dominated by the Al Sabah ruling family, and nominally elected parliament. While the Polity Data series, which it categories as autocratic, and Economist Democracy Index both categorize Kuwait as an autocracy dictatorship. Kuwait is regularly characterized as being a rentier state in which the ruling family uses oil revenues to buy the political acquiescence of the citizenry. Although Kuwait's political system is autocratic, it theoretically guarantees a wide range of civil liberties to Kuwaiti citizens. Kuwait has an active public sphere and civil society with political and social organizations that are parties in all but name. Professional groups like the Chamber of Commerce maintain their autonomy from the government. The political participation of Kuwaiti women has been limited. Kuwaiti women are considered among the most emancipated women in the Middle East. In 2014 and 2015, Kuwait was ranked first among Arab countries in the Global Gender Gap Report. In 2013, 53% of Kuwaiti women participated in the labor force. Kuwait has higher female citizen participation in the workforce than other GCC countries. Kuwaiti law does not recognize political parties. However, several political groups function as de facto political parties. Major de facto political parties include the National Democratic Alliance, Popular Action Bloc, Hada's Kuwaiti Muslim Brotherhood, National Islamic Alliance and the Justice and Peace Alliance.
Foreign relations.
The foreign affairs of Kuwait are handled at the level of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The first Foreign Affairs Department Bureau was established in 1961. Kuwait became the 111th member state of the United Nations in May 1963. It is a long-standing member of the Arab League and Gulf Cooperation Council. Before the Gulf War, Kuwait was the only pro-title equals America and the Persian Gulf. The third-party dimension in world politics publisher equals Greenwood Publishing Group. Location equals Westport, Connecticut. Date equals 1995. Page equals 51. Eisen equals 978. 275. 94,973. Kuwait acted as a conduit for the Soviets to the other Arab states of the Persian Gulf, and Kuwait was used to demonstrate the benefits of a pro-Soviet stance. As a result of the Gulf War, Kuwait's relations with the U.S. have improved. Major non-NATO ally, and it currently hosts thousands of U.S. military personnel and contractors within active U.S. facilities. Kuwait is also a major ally of ASEAN and enjoys a close relationship with China while working to establish a model of cooperation in numerous fields. According to Kuwaiti officials, Kuwait is the largest Arab investor in Germany, particularly with regard to the Mercedes-Benz company.
Military.
The military of Kuwait traces its original roots to the Kuwaiti cavalrymen and infantrymen that used to protect Kuwait and its walls since the early 1900s. These cavalrymen and infantrymen formed the defense and security forces in metropolitan areas and were charged with protecting outposts outside the wall of Kuwait. The military of Kuwait consists of several joint defense forces. The governing bodies are the Kuwait Ministry of Defense, the Kuwait Ministry of Interior, the Kuwait National Guard and the Kuwait Fire Service Directorate. The Emir of Kuwait is the commander-in-chief of all defense forces by default.
Legal system.
Kuwait follows the civil law system modeled after the French legal system. Kuwait's legal system is largely secular. Sharia law governs only title equals Arab society, class, gender, power, and development. Publisher equals American University of Cairo. Location equals Cairo, Egypt. Date equals 1997. Edition equals 3RD. Page equals 417. ISN equals 9789774244049. While non-Muslims in Kuwait have a secular family law. For the application of family law, there are three separate court sections: Sunni, Maliki, Shia, and non-Muslim. According to the United Nations, Kuwait's legal system is a mix of English common law, French civil law, Egyptian civil law and Islamic law. The court system in Kuwait is secular. Unlike other Arab states of the Persian Gulf, Kuwait does not have Sharia courts. The parliament criminalized alcohol consumption in 1983. Kuwait's Code of Personal Status was promulgated in 1984.
Human rights.
Human rights in Kuwait has been the subject of significant criticism, particularly regarding the Bedouin stateless people. The Kuwaiti government's handling of the stateless Bedouin crisis has come under significant criticism from many human rights organizations and even the United Nations. According to Human Rights Watch in 1995, Kuwait has produced 300,000 stateless Bedouin. Kuwait has the largest number of stateless people in the entire region. Since 1986, the Kuwaiti government has refused to grant any form of documentation to the Bedouin, including birth certificates, death certificates, identity cards, marriage certificates, and driving licenses. The Kuwaiti Bedouin crisis resembles the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, Burma. On the other hand, human rights organizations have criticized Kuwait for the human rights abuses toward foreign nationals. Foreign nationals account for 70% of Kuwait's total population. The kafala system leaves foreign nationals prone to exploitation. Administrative deportation is very common in Kuwait for minor offenses, including minor traffic violations. Kuwait is one of the world's worst offenders in human trafficking. Hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals are subjected to numerous human rights abuses, including involuntary servitude. They are subjected to physical and sexual abuse, non-payment of wages, poor work conditions, threats, confinement to the home, and withholding of passports to restrict their freedom of movement. Many human rights organizations have accused Kuwait of apartheid policies toward foreign nationals. In 2009, 20% of the youth and juvenile centers had dyslexia, as compared to the 6% of the general population. Data from a 1993 study found that there is a higher rate of psychiatric morbidity in Kuwaiti prisons than in the general population.
Administrative divisions.
Kuwait is divided into 6 governorates: Al-Asima Governorate or Capital Governorate, Hawali Governorate, Farwaniya Governorate, Mubarak Al-Kabir Governorate, Ahmadi Governorate, and Jara Governorate. The governorates are further subdivided into areas.
Economy.
Kuwait has a wealthy petroleum-based economy. The Kuwaiti dinar is the highest valued unit of currency in the world. According to the World Bank, Kuwait is the 7th richest country in the world per capita. As a result of various diversification policies, petroleum now accounts for only 43% of total GDP and 70% of export earnings. Non-petroleum industries include financial services. Kuwait's main export products are oil and refined products, motor cars and other motor vehicles, light vessels, and floating cranes, docks. The informal sector is also on the rise, mainly due to the popularity of Instagram businesses. In 2020, Kuwait ranked 4th in the MENA region in startup funding after the UAE, Egypt and Saudi Arabia. In 2018, Kuwait enacted certain measures to regulate foreign labor. Citing security concerns, workers from Georgia will be subject to heightened scrutiny when applying for entry visas, and an outright ban was being imposed on the entry of domestic workers from Guinea-Bissau and Vietnam. Workers from Bangladesh are also banned. In April 2019, Kuwait added Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, Bhutan, Guinea and Guinea-Bissau to the list of banned countries, bringing the total to 20. According to migrant rights, the bans are put in place mainly due to the fact that these countries lack embassies and labor corporations in Kuwait.
Petroleum and natural gas.
Despite its relatively small territory, Kuwait has proven crude oil reserves of 104 billion barrels, estimated to be 10% of the world's reserves. Kuwait also has substantial natural gas reserves. All natural resources in the country are state property.
Finance.
The Kuwait Investment Authority (KIA) is Kuwait's sovereign wealth fund specializing in foreign investment. The KIA is the world's oldest sovereign wealth fund. Since 1953, the Kuwaiti government has directed investments into Europe, United States and Asia Pacific. In 2015, the holdings were valued at $592 billion in assets. It is the fifth largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. Kuwait has a leading position in the financial industry in the GCC. The Emir has promoted the idea that Kuwait should focus its energies, in terms of economic development, on the financial industry. In the years leading up to the COVID-19 pandemic, Kuwait invested in its healthcare system at a rate that was proportionally higher than most other GCC countries. Kuwait also has 16 private hospitals. Kuwait is the second largest patent producer in the Arab world. Kuwait produces the largest number of patents per capita in the Arab world and OIC. The government has implemented various programs to foster innovation resulting in patent rights. The Malaysh satellite station complex housed several satellite ground stations including Malaysh 1 1969, Malaysh 2 1977, and Malaysh 3 1981. It provided satellite communication services in Kuwait until 1990 when it was destroyed by the Iraqi armed forces during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. In 2019, Kuwait's Orbital Space established an amateur satellite ground station to provide free access to signals from satellites in orbit passing over Kuwait. The station was named Malaysh 4 to continue the legacy of Malaysh Satellite Station. Malaysh 4 is member of FUNCube Distributed Ground Station Network and the Satellite Networked Open Ground Station Project SatNOGS.
TSCK experiment in space.
Kuwait's Orbital Space in collaboration with the Kuwait Scientific Center TSCK introduced for the first time in Kuwait the opportunity for students to send a science experiment to space. The objectives of this initiative was to allow students to learn about how science space missions are done, b microgravity weightlessness environment, c how to do science like a real scientist. This opportunity was made possible through Orbital Space Agreement with DreamUp PBC and NanoRax LLC, which are collaborating with NASA under a Space Act agreement. The students' experiment was named Kuwait's Experiment, E. consuming carbon dioxide to combat climate change. The experiment was launched on SpaceX CRS-21 SPX-21 spaceflight to the International Space Station ISS on 6 December 2020. Astronauts Shannon Walker, member of the ISS URL equals https://www. SpaceEdu. net/access date equals 7 August 2020 website equals space challenge language equals NUS, and Endurosat introduced an international online students programming opportunity called Code in Space. This opportunity allows students from around the world to send and execute their own code in space. The code is transmitted from a satellite ground station to a CubeSat nanosatellite orbiting Earth above sea level. The code is then executed by the satellite's onboard computer and tested under real space environment conditions. The nanosatellite is called QMRKWT Arabic, which means Moon of Kuwait, translated from Arabic. QMRKWT is scheduled to be launched to space in June 2021 on SpaceX Falcon 9 Block 5 rocket. It is planned to have QMRKWT shuttled to its final destination Sun-synchronous orbit via Vigoride orbit transfer vehicle by Momentus Space. QMRKWT is Kuwait's first satellite.
Kuwait space rocket.
The Kuwait Space Rocket KSR is a Kuwaiti project to build and launch the first suborbital liquid bipropellant rocket in Arabia. The project is divided into two phases with two separate vehicles, an initial testing phase with KSR-1 as a test vehicle capable of reaching an altitude of and a more expansive suborbital test phase with the KSR-2 planned to fly to an altitude of.
Education.
Kuwait had the highest literacy rate in the Arab world in 2010. The general education system consists of 4 levels, kindergarten lasting for 2 years, primary lasting for 5 years, intermediate lasting for 4 years and secondary lasting for 3 years. Schooling at primary and intermediate level is compulsory for all students aged 6 to 14. All the levels of state education, including higher education, are free. The public education system is undergoing a revamp due to a project in conjunction with the World Bank.
Tourism.
In 2015, tourism accounted for 1.5% of the GDP. In 2016, the tourism industry generated nearly $500 million in revenue. The annual Hala Febrea festival attracts many tourists from neighboring GCC countries, and includes a variety of events including music concerts, parades, and carnivals. The festival is a month-long commemoration of the liberation of Kuwait, and runs from 1 to 28 February. Liberation Day itself is celebrated on 26 February. The Emir Erdogan recently inaugurated the new Kuwait National Cultural District KNCD, which comprises Sheikh Abdullah Al Salem Cultural Center, Sheikh Jabir Al Ahmad Cultural Center, Al Shahid Park, and Al Salam Palace. Mina Al Ahmadi, the largest port in the country, handles most of Kuwait's oil exports. Construction of Mubarak Al-Kabir port in Bubiyan Islands started in 2019. The port is expected to handle 1.3 million when operations start.
Demographics.
Kuwait's 2018 population was 4.6 million people, of which 1.4 million were Kuwaitis, 1.2 million are other Arabs, 1.8 million Asian expatriates.
Ethnic groups.
Expatriates in Kuwait account for around 70% of Kuwait's total population. At the end of December 2018, 65% of Kuwait's total population were Arabs including Arab expats.
Religion.
Kuwait's official state religion is Maliki Sunni Islam. The Al Sabah ruling family including the Emir, adhere to the Maliki Madhab of Sunni Islam. Most Kuwaiti citizens are Muslim. There is no official national census but it is estimated that 60% to 70% are Sunni and 30% to 40% are Shia. The country includes a native Christian community, estimated to be composed of between 259 and 400 Christian Kuwaiti citizens. Kuwait is the only GCC country besides Bahrain to have a local Christian population who holds citizenship. There is also a small number of Kuwaiti citizens who follow the Baha'i faith. Kuwait also has a large community of expatriate Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs. English is widely understood and often used as a business language. Besides English, French is taught as a third language for the students of the humanities at schools, but for 2 years only. Kuwaiti Arabic is a variant of Gulf Arabic, sharing similarities with the dialects of neighboring coastal areas in eastern Arabia. Due to immigration during its pre-oil history as well as trade, Kuwaiti Arabic borrowed a lot of words from Persian, Indian languages, Balochi language, Turkish, English and Italian. Due to historical immigration, Kuwaiti Persian is used among Ajam Kuwaitis. The Iranian subdialects of Larestani, Konji, Bastaki and Jurashi also influenced the vocabulary of Kuwaiti Arabic. Most Shia Kuwaiti citizens are of Iranian ancestry.
Culture.
Kuwaiti popular culture, in the form of theatre, radio, music, and television soap opera, flourishes and is even exported to neighboring states. Within the Gulf Arab states, the culture of Kuwait is the closest to the culture of title equals the Sustainable City A 2-volume set, Urban Regeneration and Sustainability Series equals volume 179 of WIT Transactions on Ecology and the Environment Publisher equals WIT Press Location equals Ashurst, Southampton, UK Date equals 2014 Page equals 599 Eisen equals 978 184,564 746 9
Society.
Kuwaiti society is markedly more open than other Gulf Arab societies. Kuwaiti citizens are ethnically diverse, consisting of both Arabs and Persians Ajam. Kuwait stands out in the region as the most liberal in empowering women in the public sphere. Kuwaiti women outnumber men in the workforce.
Television and theatre.
Kuwait's television drama industry tops other Gulf Arab drama industries and produces a minimum of 15 serials annually. Kuwait is the production center of the Gulf television drama and comedy scene. Kuwaiti soap operas are the most watched soap operas from the Gulf region. Soap operas are most popular during the time of Ramadan, when families gather to break their fast. Although usually performed in the Kuwaiti dialect, they have been shown with success as far away as Tunisia. Kuwait is frequently dubbed the Hollywood of the Gulf due to the popularity of its television soap operas and theatre. Kuwait is known for its homegrown tradition of title equals popular culture in the Arab world, arts, politics, and the media publisher equals American University in Cairo Press Location equals Cairo, Egypt Date equals 2007 Page equals 277 Eisen equals 9789774160547. The theatrical movement in Kuwait constitutes a major part of the country's cultural life. Theatre activities are still popular today. Abdul Hassan Abdulrada is the most prominent actor. Kuwait is the main center of scenographic and theatrical training in the Gulf region. The institute has several divisions. Many actors have graduated from the institute, such as Swad Abdullah, Muhammad Khalifa, Mansour al-Mansour, along with a number of prominent critics such as Encyclopedia equals The World of Theatre Edition equals 2003 Title equals World of Theatre 2003 Edition, An Account of the World's Theatre Seasons Publisher equals Taylor and Francis Location equals London Date equals 2003 Page equals 214 Eisen equals 9781134402120. Every urban district has a public theatre. The public theatre in Samia is named after Abdul Hassan Abdulrada.
Arts.
Kuwait has the oldest modern arts movement in the Arabian Peninsula. Beginning in 1936, Kuwait was the first Gulf Arab country to grant scholarships in the arts. He is regarded as the founder of portrait art in the region. The Sultan Gallery was the first professional Arab art gallery in the Gulf. Kuwait is home to more than 30 art galleries. In recent years, Kuwait's contemporary art scene has boomed. Khalifa Al-Qatan was the first artist to hold a solo exhibition in Kuwait. He founded a new art theory in the early 1960s known as Circulism. Other notable Kuwaiti artists include Sami Mohammed, Thuraya al-Baksami and Suzanne Bushnak. The government organizes various arts festivals, including the Al-Qurain Cultural Festival and Formative Arts Festival. The Kuwait International Biennial was inaugurated in 1967. More than 20 Arab and foreign countries have participated in the biennial. The Dar al-Athar al-Islamiyya cultural centers include education wings, conservation labs, and research libraries. Khalifa Al-Qatan's Mirror House is the most popular art museum in Kuwait. Many museums in Kuwait are private enterprises. In contrast to the top-down approach in other Gulf states, museum development in Kuwait reflects a greater sense of civic identity and demonstrates the strength of civil society in Kuwait, which has produced many independent cultural enterprises. The National Museum, established in 1983, has been described as underused and overlooked.
Music.
Kuwait is the birthplace of various popular musical genres, such as Sort. Kuwaiti music has considerably influenced the music culture in other Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) countries, which is known for genres such as Fijiri. Kuwait pioneered contemporary Khaliji music. Kuwaitis were the first commercial recording artists in the Gulf region. The Sheikh Jabir Al Ahmad Cultural Center contains the largest opera house in the Middle East. Kuwait is home to various music festivals, including the International Music Festival hosted by the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters (NCL). Kuwait has several academic institutions specializing in university-level music education. Since 2005, Kuwait has frequently earned the highest ranking of all Arab countries in the annual Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. In 2009, 2011, 2013 and 2014, Kuwait surpassed Israel as the country with the greatest press freedom in the Middle East. Kuwait produces more newspapers and magazines per capita than its neighbors. There are limits to Kuwait's press freedom. While criticism of the government and ruling family members is permitted, Kuwait's constitution criminalizes criticism of the emir. The state-owned Kuwait news agency Qana is the largest media house in the country. The Ministry of Information regulates the media industry in Kuwait. Kuwait has 15 satellite television channels, of which 4 are controlled by the Ministry of Information. State-owned Kuwait Television KTV offered first colored broadcast in 1974 and operates 5 television channels. Government-funded Radio Kuwait also offers daily informative programming in several languages including Arabic, Persian, Urdu, and English on the AM and SW.
Literature.
Kuwait has in recent years produced several prominent contemporary writers such as Ismail Fard Ismail, author of over 20 novels and numerous short story collections. There is also evidence that Kuwaiti literature has long been interactive with English and French literature.
Sport.
Football is the most popular sport in Kuwait. The Kuwait Football Association (KFA) is the governing body of football in Kuwait. The KFA organizes the men's, women's, and futsal national teams. The Kuwaiti Premier League is the top league of Kuwaiti football, featuring 18 teams. The Kuwait national football team have been the champions of the 1980 AFC Asian Cup, runners-up of the 1976 AFC Asian Cup, and have taken third place of the 1984 AFC Asian Cup. Kuwait has also been to one FIFA World Cup. In 1982, they drew 1-1 with Czechoslovakia before losing to France and England, failing to advance from the first round. Kuwait is home to many football clubs including Al Arabi, Al Fahil, Al Jarrah, Al Kuwait, Al Nasr, Al Samia, Al Shaybab, Al Qadsa, Al Yarmouk, Kazma, Kaitan, Sulaybikat, Sale, and Dadaman. The biggest football rivalry in Kuwait is between Al Arabi and Al Qadsa. Basketball is one of the country's most popular sports. The Kuwait national basketball team is governed by the Kuwait Basketball Association (KBA). Kuwait made its international debut in 1959. The national team has been to the FIBA Asian Championship in basketball 11 times. The Kuwaiti Division I Basketball League is the highest professional basketball league in Kuwait. Cricket in Kuwait is governed by the Kuwait Cricket Association. Other growing sports include rugby union. Handball is widely considered to be the national icon of Kuwait, although football is more popular among the overall population. Ice hockey in Kuwait is governed by the Kuwait Ice Hockey Association. Kuwait first joined the International Ice Hockey Federation in 1985, but was expelled in 1992 due to a lack of ice hockey activity. Kuwait was readmitted into the IF in May 2009. In 2015, Kuwait won the IF Challenge Cup of Asia. In February 2020, Kuwait held for the first time a leg of the UEM Aqua Bike World Championship in front of Marina Beach City.